Welcome to another episode of Tuesdays with Jakey for Tuesday, December 7th, 2021, and we are closing in on the 1-year anniversary of this podcast, which I think was December 22nd, 2020 when I started this. I actually put up an episode where I interviewed my friend Matt Stocks, who I've been on his podcast once before that, and then I was on his new podcast with Jesse Leach from Kill Switch Engage a few weeks back, which was pretty intense and heavy. If you haven't checked that one out, I would highly recommend checking out Stoke the Fire podcast. I don't know what episode I am, but go to iTunes or Spotify and dial up Stoke the Fire podcast, and then you'll see my name on there. And I'd highly recommend listening to that one, but I can't believe it's been almost a year now. Where does the time go? Because part of me would like to say, well, it feels like just yesterday that I started this, but it doesn't. It feels like years ago. And, how do you slow down time? I've said this before, but it's by leading a full life. And the more shit you get yourself into, the slower time seems to move. And that's why, what I've been through in the past year feels like way more than a year, because I filled my life with interesting things. And I guess when it comes time for the Reaper to pay that visit for all of us, we're going to look back, even if it's in a split second, and wonder, how'd we do? Did we make the most of life? And I struggle with that on a day-to-day basis, because some days I just feel like I haven't done anything, and I feel like I should be doing more. But when I look back now, a year ago I was in McCall. I had decided to settle there. Decided to settle in Idaho for what I thought would be just until the spring. And in that year, goodness, I mean, what adventures I've had. New Year came and went, and then we were in 2021, and we had an insurrection at the Capitol, right? And then, let's see, just about a year ago, a little more than a year ago, my car broke down for the first time, and I had to hitchhike through a canyon during COVID to get a ride to a place with cell service to try to get my car sorted out. And then I took up skiing, and I had a season pass last year at Brundage Mountain, and I took up snowshoeing, took up cross-country skiing. In February of last year, I went for another long car ride, and my car broke down yet again, leaving me stranded in a tiny town called Grangeville for 5 days, which I documented on this podcast plenty. And then, after I got back from that, I got a call from a friend in need who needed a car driven from Phoenix, Arizona to Woodstock, New York, and 24 hours later, I was on a plane to Phoenix, where I picked up his car from the parking garage and drove it through the worst storm America has seen, or at least worst winter storm that Texas had seen, and I drove through a blizzard. And then I spent a lot of time writing, a first sort of draft for my memoir. And then springtime came, and I went to work on a farm for a while, and then I ended up taking a trip to Yellow Pine, where I live now, and got a job at a bar, the Yellow Pine Tavern, and spent the whole summer living outside like a real mountain man, literally living in the woods and bathing in the river. And fall came, and I had to figure out what to do, so I packed up the belongings that I had left in McCall, and I moved into this house. And also went on a couple of trips, went to Los Angeles and Phoenix with the band H2O, and did a lot of motorcycle adventure riding. Had a nifty little crash in September. Also did trips to New York, where I went back to for the first time in about a year and a half, and spent a couple of weeks there. Did a live podcast episode for Live from the Bowery Electric, and I also went to Las Vegas to see the Rolling Stones, and lots of trips to Boise in that, which is the closest thing Idaho has to a big city. Spent some time there, and I just went there again this past weekend to see Whitney Cummings perform comedy. And that's probably the least amount of traveling I've done in a year. Certainly the least amount of planes I've been on in a year since, in this century, for sure. And I saw my first stand-up comedy since the pandemic. I went to see Whitney Cummings, like I said, who is a comedian. She rose to prominence being in the roasts, the Comedy Central roasts, which are very popular for quite a spell in the late 2000s, early 2010s. And Whitney, I have a connection with her, I guess you'd say. Well, let me go back. So I saw her on one of these Comedy Central roasts, and I woke up the next morning, and I was like in bed, and I was like, that woman last night, Whitney Cummings, was fucking phenomenal. Man, how have I not heard about her? I gotta do some more. I had to do some research into this Whitney Cummings. Like, why? How come I don't know more about her? And I went to her website and her Twitter and her Instagram and started poking around. And then I found out she had a Tumblr blog, and I started scrolling down the pages of her Tumblr blog. And a couple of pages in, to my surprise, popped up my tattoo of the unicorn and the dolphin. And she had written a whole story about my tattoo. Why don't I just read it to y'all here? I think that's what I'll do. Now I gotta find it. Why don't I have it pulled up? I should have had it pulled up. But I'm gonna get there. So she had written basically about my tattoo and wrote about how it was kind of the stupidest tattoo she'd ever seen, which, you know, I gotta give it to her. Like, it is a stupid tattoo. And I'm gonna get into why I even got this tattoo in a little bit here. And man, I should have had this dialed up better. Sorry to make you wait. But so imagine my surprise when I come upon a picture of my tattoo, and here's what she wrote. She wrote, "I love tattoos. Obsessed. I'd get one if I wasn't so terrified of commitment. I also happen to be very vain. I don't want to get a tattoo of a big tiger or something, and then in 30 years it'll end up looking like my varicose veins exploded. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe it would just look like a very lethargic tiger. Either way, it's not going to be a cute situation. I have a feeling that in 30 years I'm going to be on the goddamn prowl, so I can't fuck around with the goods. I'm also pretty scared of the pain of getting a tattoo. I just got laser on my whole body and it kills. Lasering your pubes literally causes them to smoke because of the laser burns the hair follicle off. Your vagina is literally on fire. I'm sure the Bible isn't too happy about me repurposing their whole burning bush idea with my cooch, but then again, I'm pretty sure I can't get in a fight with a book. Not sure what the fuck I'm talking about, but a lot of things are holding me back from getting a tattoo. I'm obsessed. So I have this tattoo porn thing. I go to tattoo websites and look at tattoos I want and often come across stupid ones. This one stuck out at me, and not because it's a unicorn having either doggy style or anal sex with a dolphin. It's more that the sex doesn't seem consensual. I mean, dolphin is definitely trying to wriggle its way out of that scenario. That dolphin has fears in its eyes. The tattoo has to be a mistake. I mean, no guy hates getting laid so much that he would get a tattoo of a dolphin getting raped on his arm. That's just a first-class ticket to celibacy. Even I draw the line at this. So if it is a mistake, I'm thinking the idea was to have the unicorn having sex with the dolphin's blowhole. The problem with that is there's a huge fin on a dolphin's back that the tattoo isn't accounting for. I mean, that's probably why dolphins evolved to have that sharp fin on their back in the first place, so pink asshole horses would stop trying to put their dick in it. I don't know, but this is sloppy. I mean, do unicorns just try to stick their dicks into any hole they can find? Yes. Even if it means going to SeaWorld? In this case, unicorns have a lot more in common with men than I thought. I'm just trying to figure out what this tattooed idiot was requesting. How did he explain it? If he straight up wanted a dolphin and a unicorn having sex, the dolphin would be the other way around, right? And not desperately trying to escape. If he asked for a unicorn having sex with a dolphin's blowhole, the unicorn would be much higher up because the blowhole is on top of their head. So he must have asked for like a unicorn dry humping a dolphin and squishing its fin. Oh, and can you throw a rainbow in the background to make sure girls never talk to me again and that I'm completely unemployable? When you have a tattoo, you shouldn't have to do any explaining unless it's something personal. I'm a big fan of cryptic personal tattoos that nobody understands, but if you take popular, celebrated animals we all know and love and do some crazy perverted shit with them, you need to make sure we're all on board or that it's at least biologically feasible. You can't just defile the two most sacred animals and have them all up in each other's holes. Well, yes you can, Miss Cummings, and I did. And I'm going to get to why I did that in just a minute. But before that, I'm going to get to what happened in the last week that on my way to going down to Boise to see Miss Whitney Cummings perform at the Egyptian Theater. And sticks with the theme that I talked about a little earlier, which is breakdowns. So where I live up here in Yellow Pine, there's no trash collection. We have to take our trash to their version of a dump, which is an old big wooden structure, kind of like a barn with no walls, just a roof and a gate to keep the bears out of our trash bins. And there's a couple of dumpsters up there, and Valley County sends a truck up once a month or so to empty our dumpsters so the people in the town can have a way to get rid of their trash. Now, I learned recently from Lynn Emmel, old school sort of Yellow Pine historian and longtime resident. She actually used to teach at the one-room schoolhouse here in Yellow Pine. And Lynn Emmel was telling me that for the longest time, the dump up here in Yellow Pine was just a huge hole that's out in the same space where the dump is now. Technically, they call it a transfer station because we put our trash into a dumpster, and then another truck comes and empties that dumpster and takes it away to a real dump, I guess, of which there is one down in Donnelly. Probably maybe another in Cascade, too, which is probably where our trash ends up. So see, you transfer the trash from your house to this station, and then they come and transfer it to the dump. I guess that's why it's called a transfer station. I never knew the term transfer station until I lived up here. But Lynn Emmel told me that they used to just send a backhoe out there and dig a huge hole just out in the middle of the woods, and people would just throw their trash in it. And then when it got full, they would cover it up with dirt and then dig another huge hole next to it. And on this went. And I guess a lot of the trash would decompose under there in the ground, probably not well, and it would probably seep into the water supply. So she said at some point in the late 80s or early 90s, Valley County set up an actual transfer station and put some dumpsters up there. And that was going well for a while, Lynn Emmel told me, but then they finally had to put a fence and gates around the structure because bears were coming and getting into the dumpsters and looking for food. And she said it used to be great bear watching. You would just go down to the transfer station and look for bears and kind of watch them go through your trash. I wish I could do that now, but there are still a lot of scratches on the fence because the bears will come down because they know there's food in there. They can smell it, and they try to get in, but they can't. So I guess all the bears are hibernating now, probably because snow came today. So they're definitely in their caves or wherever bears hibernate. I should probably look that up. I'd like to learn a little more about bears. But I had to take my little quad out there. My benefactor landlords, Candy and Willie, left me their quad, like a ATV type of thing that I can hook a little trailer up to and take it out to the transfer station and put my trash barrels in there. So I was going away for a few days, and I was like, let me just get the trash out of my house and take all of it to the transfer station so I don't come back to a stinky garbage bin in my house. And so I took the quad out there, and it's 3 miles outside of town and down this dirt road. And about 2 miles in, I ran out of gas. And I was like, fuck. I had kind of been thinking the last couple times I took the quad out, I should check the gas because there's no like gas tank indicator or anything. But I was like, I haven't taken it that far. Willie said he left it full of gas, but I guess I had taken it further than I thought, and Willie had left it less full than he thought because I ran out of gas about 2 miles in. So it was just getting dark too because I waited till just about sunset because I thought it would be a nice time to go out there and watch the sunset. And so the quad just stalled, and I was like, well, the only one thing to do now, and that's walk all the way back into town. So there's no cell service out here. You only have cell service when you have Wi-Fi in one of the structures here. So I walked back, and it took me 40 minutes or so to walk those 2 miles back along that dirt road. And I saw Miss Lorraine at the tavern, and I picked up a 2-gallon can of gas, and she gave me a ride back out. And so I filled the quad, I filled the tank, and I started it up, and it started. And I said, I'm just going to let it run for a minute. So, Lorraine, you can head back. I should be fine now. And she left. And then when she left, it stalled. And then I tried to start it again, and it wouldn't start. And then I kept trying to start it, and it turned out I had flooded it. And that's when you get too much gas in the carburetor. And I flooded it, the whole thing. So once it gets flooded, it's not going to start for a while because you got to wait for that gas to kind of dissolve or what is the word? For it to evaporate. So I was like, well, it's going to be a while. And I started walking back again. And I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to walk back. And then a pickup truck came along, and it was Clint. Clint is sometime local. He spends a lot of time up here, but he also lives down in Boise, I guess. Boise, Eagle, Meridian, who knows? One of those towns. But he lives in the greater Boise area. And Clint is the guy who had shot the bear that we ate for Thanksgiving. And Clint pulled up, and he's like, what's going on? And I was like, oh, I fucking was taking the quad out to the dump, and I ran out of gas, and I walked back into town, and I got gas. And he was like, well, hop in. I'll take care of you. And I was like, okay. And I was like, if you just give me a ride back to the tavern, that'd be cool. And he's like, no, let's go get your quad. So we turned around and went back, like probably walked a half a mile at that point. So we went back, and he got this big tow rope out, like this strap, and he wrapped it around his tow hitch, and then wrapped it around the front of the quad and pulled me back into town, which was very nice, because I was kind of thinking I was going to have to like let the gas evaporate, walk back into town, drive my car back out there the next day, or walk back out to the quad and then drive it back into town. But Clint saved me, and he towed me all the way back, and we were going nice and slow, and I was sitting on the quad, and I had it in neutral, and I turned it on so I could have a little bit of light, even though I was just being towed behind him by about 20 feet of rope. And he finally got the quad back. Oh, what I had also done is I had tried to start it so much that I killed the battery. So when I got the quad back here, I took the battery out, hooked it up to a battery tender, which I had for my motorcycle, and then figured the next morning I'd just give it a start. And the next morning came, and it didn't want to start, but I was like, maybe the gas just isn't evaporated yet. So I got in my car the next morning, and around 10 o'clock a.m. I left. And it was going to be a long drive to Boise because there's a big rock slide on the main road between here and Boise, so I was going to have to go around and take the long route. The short route to Boise's 5 hours. The long route was going to turn it into about 6.5, and that's without stops. So it ended up taking me about 7.5 because I made stops to pee, of course. So I like to drink a lot of water, so I pee a lot. And I drove all the way to Boise, and I finally got into town, I don't know, around 4:30 p.m., and checked into the Cabana Hotel. And what an interesting time I had checking into the Cabana. The Cabana is a rundown 2-floor motel complex just on the outskirts of downtown Boise. I mean, it's basically in downtown. Just a short 5-minute walk to like the heart of downtown Boise. And I've stayed there a bunch of times. The first time I stayed in Boise, I stayed with Greg and Shanti. They were doing a gig with their kids' music project, Playdate, and I was the roadie, which meant really I'd have to help them load some equipment, but really it was to look after the 3-year-old son Ever while they were playing their gig. And for that trip, they had put me up at the Red Lion Hotel, which is where they were staying, which is right around the corner from the Cabana. And as we were driving in and out of town, checking things out, I kept noticing the Cabana, and I've mentioned this plenty of times before, and if you know me, you'll know that I often pick my motels when I get to a town on how cool the old neon sign is. I don't really care how clean they are or how dirty they are. Usually the nastier the better. But the Cabana has a great old sign of like a flat-brimmed Mexican kind of hat with the little pom-poms hanging off of it. And I love that their sign still has the old like color TV by RCA sign on it. And the next time I went down to Boise by myself, I stayed at the Cabana, and I loved it. It was like, it wasn't nearly as dirty as I thought it was going to be when I got into the room, and it was $75, and that's a hell of a deal because that's less than half what most hotels in downtown Boise go for. So I was like, all right. I'd stayed there for 2 nights, and I dialed up my old hotels.com app on this trip to see how many times I'd actually stayed at the Cabana, because I always use them to book, because every 10 stays you get a free stay. You get a free night. So I looked that up, and that turned out this was my 8th time staying at the Cabana. So I've been to Boise more than I thought. But I guess 8 times in 16 months, I guess isn't really that much, right, when you think about it. But a couple of trips ago, I had taken my necklace off. I wear this fucko necklace that if you're watching the video, you can see. It's like one of those nameplates that were popularized by black girls in the 80s that would get their names put on them. And I've made a few of these that said fucko. I believe this is my 3rd. I think I made one that said Sancho too. And then I broke that one. I used to get really cheap ones down on Delancey Street. And I broke my Sancho one. Then I got a Fucko one, broke that. Then I had a nicer Fucko one made that was actually plated in 18 karat gold from a company called Snash Jewelry, which I'd highly recommend. It's a woman in Brooklyn who makes really cool shit. And a couple of days ago, though, I took my necklace off before I went to bed and left it on the table next to the bed, and woke up the next morning and gathered all my shit, and it must have fallen off the table because on my way home, I realized, oh, fuck, I'm not wearing it. And I do a pretty good idiot check in hotels, but I hadn't noticed it, so it must have slid off the little end table there. And I called the hotel on the way home, and I told them I had lost the necklace. And then I called them again and again and again, and the guy at the door kept saying, oh, I've asked housekeeping, they haven't found it. But I didn't trust that he had asked them, and I'm pretty sure to this day that he hadn't asked them. But the next time I went down to stay there, I said to him, hey, man, last time I was here, I was in room 37, and I've called you a couple times, and have you found this necklace? And he's like, no, we haven't, I asked. And then I saw this guy pushing one of the laundry carts around, and I went over and talked to him, and I was like, hey, man, I lost my necklace. And this dude's name is Hector. And Hector, short, Mexican-looking dude with a do-rag and tattoos all over his hands and his neck, and a teardrop tattoo under his eye, which is the universal sign for having killed somebody. Gangsters used to put teardrops under their eye for each person they killed. Thankfully, this guy had only one, so hopefully he's only killed one person. But this guy was rough-looking, very scary-looking dude. And his teeth are all mangled. He's missing like half of them, and the ones that he have are kind of decaying and sharp and jagged, and just scary-looking motherfucker. And I explained to him, I was like, hey, man, last time I was here, I stayed in room 37. I left this necklace. It said Fucko. Any chance you might have found it? And he was like, oh, yeah, man. Yeah, we found that shit. I think I have it on my cart. Come on, let's go check. He's like, what did it say? And I said, it said Fucko. He's like, oh, I couldn't tell what it said. I knew it said fuck something. I thought it was some gay shit. And I got to tell you, man, like usually if I find some gold, I'm going to keep that shit. You know, we usually keep that shit we find in our rooms. You know, if we think it's valuable, we keep it. And, but yeah, this one, I put it on the cart. Let me see if it's still there. And he took me into the room where they keep all the room cleaning carts and rifled through a couple of them and eventually found it. And I was stoked. And I gave him a big hug and I said, thank you, Hector. And I got my necklace back. So on this trip, I was going to check in, and Hector came up to the window, and I was like, oh, Hector, dude, what's up? And he's like, oh, what's up, man? How you doing? And I was like, yeah, you're the guy who saved my necklace. I remember you had that fuck thing, right? I'm like, yeah, well, it's at Fucko. And he was like, yeah, I get it. And the guy was checking me in, so I had a little time to talk to Hector. And I was like, what's going on? What are you up to? He's like, I just finished for the day, man. I found a bag of meat in one of the rooms. And I gotta get a plastic bag from the guy here so I can like put all the meat in the plastic bag and take it home and I can cook that shit. He's like, one of the other cleaner guys, he thinks it's human parts in there. But I was like, no, man, you know, when a human dies, they start to smell right away. And I told him, this ain't no fucking human, man, because it'd be smelling. And I was like, really? Humans smell right away? He's like, yeah, man. You know, when you kill an animal, you cut it open and gut it and let all the blood drain out. You just hang it from a tree. You let it air dry and shit, man. Never even smells that bad. Then you get ready, then you cook that meat. He's like, but with a human, man, they start to smell right away. I mean, like right away. You can't like put a human body in a fucking freezer, man, because the freezer, it'll stink up your whole freezer. Like you try to leave it there just for an hour, man, until you can move the body somewhere else, and man, your freezer gonna stink forever. So you don't want to do that. And the whole time I'm just like nodding, but of course inside I'm like, this guy's fucking telling me about killing people, right, and disposing of bodies. This is cool. So I was like, well, are you sure that, what do you think that is? You think that's cow meat? You're sure it's not human meat? No, man, I mean, how many times I gotta tell you? Like, no, the other guy, he thinks it's human meat, so he's not gonna take it, but I'm gonna take it home. I'm gonna eat this shit. I'm gonna cook it up and eat it. I'm sure it's good. I was like, what do you think it is? Beef? He's like, I don't know. Probably beef. I don't know. Dude, I have fucking no idea, but I love it. He's so thrifty. I can't imagine that job pays well. And I can't imagine too many people stay at that hotel for a night. It seems to be, every time I look in, it's more like a halfway house, I would assume. And I think they have weekly and monthly rates, though I've yet to inquire. I got to, though. Maybe I can get a good deal to stay there for a week sometime. Not sure what I would do with myself for a week in Boise, but I'm sure I could figure it out. You know, if the price is right, maybe I will stay here for a week. But yeah, this place is like, it's pretty rough. So during that time, So then he starts telling me, I was like, you ever find a dead body here? Like in the hotel? And he was like, shit, yeah. And I was like, really? How many? He's like, shit, me? Myself? I found 3. He was like, I was like, what rooms did you find him in? He was like, 25, 47, and 51. And I almost always stay between 29 and 37. For whatever reason, that's always where I get put. And I would assume that those are the rooms that are left open for people who are staying a couple of nights, and maybe the rest are more for long-term residents. But there's always shady activity going on in there. It's always the sketchiest fucking characters. A couple of stays ago, I had a woman. She walked by my room, and I had the door open, so I was just letting it air out because it smelled a little funky. And she, like, poked her head in my room and looked around. And I was like, can I help you? She's like, oh, no, sorry. And then I went to go outside because I was waiting for my friend K-Dog to pick me up. So I went to look outside, and she was out there smoking a cigarette, and she was like, hey, so what are you doing? And I was like, what do you mean, what am I doing? She's like, what are you up to? And I'm like, I'm just hanging out. Why? Like, leave me alone. Like, trying to throw off that vibe. And she's like, you want me to come in? You want some company? And I was like, oh, no. Oh, you're hooking, I guess, what the word would be. But she looked methed out. She had like lesions on her skin and lesions, boils, whatever they were. She looked really rough. And I was like, I don't want any part of this. I don't even want to converse with this woman. So I just kind of slammed the door shut. Not slammed, but I was like, well, all right, well, have a nice day. You know what I mean? And shut the door as if to say, like, leave me the fuck alone, lady. And, but so I always stayed in these rooms, and so I was happy to know, like, all right, 25, 47, and 51, and I was like, well, what happened? And he was like, oh, man, this one guy, he died, and I found his body. He was sitting up in the bed, and then I had to call the police, and the police came, and the police are like, what do you think happened? And I was like, I think he died of a heart attack. And the police were like, what makes you think that? And I was like, yo, man, he was sitting up in bed, and he had his right hand over his chest, like where his heart would be, and then his left hand was over that, and he was clutching at his chest. So I was like, yo, probably seemed to be a heart attack. And the police were surprised that I knew so much and could help them figure out how this guy died. And I was like, well, obviously the coroner was probably going to figure it out too, but good on you, Hector. And that's good, pretty good powers of deduction you had there. But he's like, that guy, that was in room 47. Then I found another one in 25. And I was like, how'd that person die? He's like, I think it was drugs. Might have been they drank too much, but yeah, they were just dead on the bed, laying down on the bed. And there was drug stuff around. And then in 51, that woman got beaten to death. Ooh, that was rough. And that was his story. And I was like, oh shit. And I was like, have more people died here? He's like, oh yeah, for sure. That's just the ones that I found. And I was like, well, glad you remember the room numbers, and I'll remember not to try not to stay in one of those rooms. And I gotta say, if you're a little on the daring side, just a little too, not a lot, but if you're a little on the daring side and might be interested in coming to Boise, I would highly recommend the Cabana. If you want to be thrifty with your places to stay, you want to spend all the money you want, fine, go for it. But no great stories ever start with, so I was staying at the Holiday Inn Express, right? Almost never. Good stories start with, I was staying at this sort of halfway house rundown motel called the Cabana Inn that's $75 a night that's cleaned by gangsters. So yeah, I would highly recommend it for that price, but be careful which room you get, and maybe just ask the guy at the desk. It's an Indian guy and his wife who are always at the desk. So just ask him, be like, hey, just try not to put me in a room where you found a dead body, okay? So I finally got myself checked in and ended up in room 29, which was not a nice room, I gotta say. Not a nice room. I'd stayed in 27, which is the first time I stayed like on the hotel shaped like an L, like the motel. 27 was where I stayed last time, and I was like, please don't put me in 27 again. I did not like that room at all. And then he put me in 29. I was like, I don't really like that either. So next time I'm going to go for 34, 35, 36, or 37. I think those are the only ones I'm going to stay in. Because those are all, I've stayed in those 4 plenty of times, at least once each. And they've always been like cleanish. Clean enough. I got to say, it never feels like disgustingly dirty in there. Probably, when I check in anyway. When I leave might be a different story. But, so I checked in and hung out for a little bit, read, and then I was like, I'm going to go get myself a pedicure. So I went to this nail salon that I had went to the first time I stayed down there. It was just a walk away, maybe about a mile. But this time I was like, I'm going to take my car because I remembered they didn't have a machine to dry your toes. And I didn't want to walk home in the freezing cold with flip-flops on. So I was like, I'm going to drive over there. So I drove over there, parked in the parking lot, checked out the little running shop, and that's in the same strip mall. And then went and got my toes done. I had them painted a nice little shade of purple. And felt really nice. Felt really nice. I gotta say, if you're a dude and you don't get pedicures, you fucking should. And if you fucking wear flip-flops or sandals or anything like that, like, don't fucking not get a fucking pedicure. You don't go out and show your toes when you got nasty fungy toenails or toenails that you haven't cut. It's just like gross. You don't have to get color on it. Like, that's a little fruity. I understand. But like, please, men out there, don't go out in public with disgusting looking toenails, please. Okay. Then I came out of there and I walked over to Albertsons to get some food to eat for dinner for the night. And then I went back to my car and I put the key in and turned it on and nothing. And then I looked at my headlight little turn on off switch thingy and it was in on. And I was like, fuck, killed the battery in this car. Now, I've had this car at this point a little more than a year. I got it in late September of last year, and I never changed the battery. And the battery looked old and beat up, and so I Googled batteries. They're supposed to last 3 to 5 years. I was like, this one looks like it's been there enough time, because sometimes you can recharge a battery and it'll be fine. But I didn't want to come back up to Yellow Pine with a dicey battery where my car would be sitting in the cold for a while. So it's like, fuck. By this point, it was like 7:30, and the auto parts stores were closed. So thankfully, there's a Napa auto parts store right next to the Cabana. So I was like, I'll just get up in the morning and get a new battery. So that's what I did. I woke up in the morning, got a new battery. And then I was like, I'll just carry it a mile to where my car is. And car batteries are fucking heavy. If you haven't held one recently, they're heavy. So it was a hell of a walk to my car. But I had the little screwdriver and bolt ratchet thingy, wrench they call it, and I managed to swap my battery out, but it didn't fit properly in the well. It was way too small. So then got it in, got it hooked up, it started the car, went back to Napa, explained to the guy, yo, I think you gave me the wrong battery. Then he typed shit in his computer, then he wanted to come out and see it, and he was like, oh man, yeah, I did. It comes in 2 sizes. I should have told you. Yeah, I definitely gave you the wrong one. So then we swapped it out, and I got the right one. And then I went back over to the Cabana and went to lunch with Kevin and Rita and their daughter Charlie, and we had a great taco lunch, and then went out for a nice run, and then I was getting ready to go to the show, and I was like, the whole time I had been like, man, I want to meet Whitney Cummings. I need to meet Whitney Cummings. And this one time I had almost met her in New York. It was a friend of mine who's a comedian, is friends with her, and we went to see her, and the idea was we would see her after the show, and I would show her the tattoo, and we'd all have a good laugh. And that was in maybe 2015 or something. And we went to the show, and then we went to try to meet her, but she had already taken off because she had another show to go do in another part of town, and then she was doing something else. So my friend Dave was like, yeah, it doesn't look like tonight's going to be the night to meet her. And I was like, all right, that's fine. I'll meet her another time. And I had run into her a bunch of times at the Comedy Store in LA, which is kind of like the mecca for stand-up comedy. Definitely the LA mecca. Like on any given night, you can go there and there will be Sebastian Maniscalco, fucking Whitney Cummings, Mark Maron, Joe Rogan, Anthony Jeselnik, all the big stars that you've seen on Netflix and whatnot. That's where they go to work out all their material. And there's a back hallway in the club where they kind of hang out waiting for the next comic to go on and shoot the shit with each other. And if you're not a dick, you can approach them and say hi to them. And I had always wanted to approach Whitney back there, but I never had, because every time I had seen her back there, she was either engrossed in conversation with another comic, and I didn't want to just interrupt to be like, look at my tattoo, or I was pretty drunk, and at which case point I was like, I don't want to, this isn't how I want to like come across and meet her for the first time. So I just kind of like never really had the chance. And then the show, I had seen the show was happening a few months back, and I was like, I think I'm going to go to that. So I got 2 tickets. Didn't buy them, but I got them from a friend of mine who works for the Knitting Factory, because there's a big Knitting Factory venue in Boise, and a friend of mine was running that for a while, and they also promote shows in other venues, so they were promoting the show at the Egyptian Theater. So I managed to wrangle a couple of tickets, and then I tried to find friends to go with me in Boise, and I don't have too many, so it very quickly became evident that I wasn't going to be bringing a friend. I got the tickets like 3 weeks ago. And I just kind of was like, all right, fuck it. I guess I'll go by myself. And so when I got home from my run, I was like, wait a minute. Maybe I don't have to go by myself. Maybe I can, well, I'll still go by myself, but maybe I can sell this extra ticket and make a few bucks. So I put a post up on Craigslist saying, hey, single ticket available for Whitney Cummings. I think face value was $50 plus fees, so I offered it for $30. Didn't get any takers. So I was like, all right, fuck it, I'll go alone. But right before I left my hotel, I was like, man, I should at least let Whitney know I'm coming. No pun intended. And so I went to Twitter and I found the link for the blog post that I read, and I tweeted something about how I'm coming to the show. And I wrote, made a 7-hour drive from the wild Idaho backcountry of Yellow Pine to Boise to see Whitney Cummings, and I tagged her in it. Figured the least I could do is let her be in the same room as this tattoo of which she's apparently very fond. And I just posted that on Twitter, and then I went to the show, and as I was standing in line to get in the front door, I opened my Twitter, and she had replied, and she replied and just wrote, yes, I love you. And I lost my shit, and I was like, holy shit. Maybe there is a way I can meet her. And I hadn't given much thought to like trying to meet her because I figured with COVID and everything going on, like, what are the chances that I'm going to meet her? I was like pretty much slim to none, right? Because I've heard that most bands and comics aren't doing any sort of meet and greet with COVID. So when I got into the venue, I looked around and I saw there was a door, and above the door, there was a door with a security guard standing right in front of it. And it was off to the side of the lobby. And above the door, it said green room in some old mosaic that looked like it dated back to when they built the theater, probably in the middle of the 20th century. And I went up to the woman security guard and I tried to explain to her what was going on. I was like, look, I know this sounds weird, but I have this tattoo of a unicorn humping a dolphin, and I showed her my phone and the Twitter, and I'm like, Whitney did a whole blog post about this tattoo, and I tweeted at her today saying I was coming, and she wrote back, yes, I love you, and like, not trying to like meet her, I don't want to get backstage, but I have this sticker of the image, and I had written on the back of the sticker, at Jake Rocks Off. I'd written that before I even left the hotel, because I didn't know that she would see my tweet, and I said, I would love it if you could just give her this sticker. And she's like, that woman very quick, I can't give anything. I can't take anything from you and give it to them. I don't know. She got very nervous. And I was like, all right, she's obviously a rookie at the security thing. So I'm going to have to come up with plan B. Plan B, I kept my eyes open and stood around the lobby for a while until I saw the guy who seemed to look most official. He was wearing a knitting factory jacket. And I went up to him. I was like, sir, you work for the knitting factory? And he's like, yes, sir, I do. And I was like, cool, I got a weird question for you. It's going to seem a little odd. And I explained to him the situation, and he was like, huh, all right, yeah. Like, yeah, sure, no problem. And then he started explaining, like, all right, well, this was like 10 to 8, and the show was supposed to start at 8. And he's like, in just about 10 minutes, I'm going to bring her down from the green room and then walk her through the far right aisle and to the stage. He's like, why don't you just wait here, and then you can, like, hand it to her when we come out of the green room. And I was like, dude, I don't really want to ambush her, you know, like, could you just give her the sticker? Like, I don't really care to meet her. I don't, especially not like right before she's going on stage. And he looked a little puzzled, but was like, yeah, okay, I'll just give her the sticker. And I was like, all right, cool, thanks. And then I started chuckling to myself because I'm like, yo, you're the one escorting her from the stage, from the green room to the stage. Like, it's kind of your job to keep her away from wackos like me. Like, why would you go and tell me? But I guess I made a good impression. And then after he finished telling me all that, I was like, hey, have you worked for the knitting factory for a long time? And he's like, yeah, 7 years. I opened the venue in Boise, and I opened the one in Spokane. And I was like, oh, cool. And I was like, I used to be the talent buyer at the one in New York in early 2000s. And I said the name of the guy who hooked me up with the tickets. And he was like, oh, I know him very well. Oh, yeah, cool, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, all right, well, cool. Yeah, I'll give her the sticker. And I was like, all right, thanks. So then I went out and I found my seat. And I texted my buddy who got me the tickets, and I asked for the phone number of the security guy, and I told him what his name was, and he was like, oh, yeah, tell him I said hi, here's his phone number. So I texted him, and I was like, hey, man, thanks a lot for giving her that sticker. I just really didn't want to bother her before she was going on stage, but if there is any chance to meet her after the show, I'd appreciate it. And I didn't hear back, and then the show started, and I got to say, it was a fucking awesome show. And I'm a little biased because I already like her. I was predisposed to liking her, but she put on a really good show, and most of the show was pre-written, but she did a fair amount of like crowd work and talking to the crowd. At one point, there was people doing sign language in the down right in front of the stage. There were two people that were signing to someone in the front row. I don't know why it took two of them, but they were like switching off. I guess your hands get tired if you're going to sign for an hour. It just doesn't make sense. But so Whitney asked at a certain point, she was like, how do you say fake tits? And like the sign language person was just signing to the customer, I guess the hearing impaired customer. And then after, like they kind of like got to the bottom of what was going on, and Whitney was like, no, I'm talking to you. How do you do sign language for fake tits? And then the woman showed her, and she was like, oh, cool. And then a little while later, she said the word faggot, and the crowd kind of gasped, and she's like, oh, am I not allowed to say that word? And she's very unpolitically correct. And everyone just kind of laughed, and she was like, what are you guys going to do, report me? And then she started asking the sign language girl, hey, what's the sign word for faggot? And the woman seemed flustered and didn't want to answer her. So she just said, oh, what you people going to report me? Go ahead. Call TMZ. Tell them that Whitney Cummings is in Boise, Idaho. See if they even fucking believe you. And that got a huge roar. And I thought that was hilarious because, yeah, what are the chances Whitney Cummings going to be in Boise? I guess picking up a big fucking paycheck. That's what. But so when the show finally ended, I looked at my phone, and there was a message back from the security guy who said she's going to be signing after the show. And I was like, well, cool. And then she said, hey, everyone who wants to like meet me, get a selfie, sign an autograph, everybody line up over here. So I jumped and got into the line, and I was like, I'm going to meet her. And the line was moving pretty slow, and she had the microphone in her hand and kept chastising people for not having their phones ready. And she kept saying, everybody, please have your phone ready and on selfie mode. We got to make this quick. You know, security needs to go home. We can't be here all night. Really, I think she was like, I just want to be drinking. Because she did leave the stage for a couple of minutes, and then she came back to announce that she was doing all the signing. And I think it was probably to let part of the crowd leave. And also probably had to pee. And she came back out with a 12-pack of White Claw. And I thought that was pretty funny. And so we're all waiting in line, and when finally it came to be my turn, I pulled my sleeve up and I got the tattoo exposed, and I walked right up to her, and I was like, hey, look, I'm the guy with the tattoo. And she was like, oh my God, get out of here, you fucking did it, oh my God, I love this tattoo. And then she like hopped down off of the stage. She was sitting on, like with her legs dangling off the stage, and she hopped down, and then she gave me a big hug, and then she hopped back up on the stage and said into the microphone, like, everybody, this guy has a tattoo of a unicorn fucking a dolphin, and I wrote about it on my blog, and he tweeted at me, and now here he is. Jake, turn around, show everybody your tattoo. So I did. I turned around, and like there were like 200 people waiting in line behind me, and I got a big round of applause, which I thought was really funny. And we chatted just for a quick minute, and she was like, oh my God, I need a picture, like, hold it up, I want a close-up picture. So she snapped a picture, and then I talked about our mutual friend, Dave Hill, and I said, you know Dave Hill? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, we used to be in a band together called Children of the Unicorn, and this photo was our album cover, so I figured that's where you saw it for the first time. And she was like, no, I didn't even know about that. Like, I saw it on a tattoo blog somewhere. And I was like, well, cool. And she's like, but fucking tell Dave Hill I love him. Tell him I'm obsessed with him. And it's great meeting you. Okay, take care. And that was that. And we got a couple of selfies. And I went on my merry way. And I ended up going back to the Cabana and did some shopping. And then I just got so excited. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that even really happened. But like, of course I can believe it happened, because that's the kind of stuff that happens to me. Like, because I make that kind of shit happen. Like, had I just gone right in and sat in the seat, that wouldn't have happened. But I had to like try to make sure there was some way I could get the sticker to her, and then that ended up, obviously I did that, but that's not why I met her. But like, you got to give those things a try, right? Like, you gotta, if you want something to happen, you got to go out there and make it happen. And I wanted to make sure I got the sticker in her hand, and I ended up with much more than that. And I ended up with a nice picture, and it was all very exciting, and I loved it. And now I'm going to get into a little bit about the history of the unicorn and the dolphin. And if you're wondering where that came from, so am I, so am I. And I don't know what prompted it. I honestly don't remember, but I remember one day I was sitting in my office on 44th Street and 9th Avenue in the Film Center building, 630 9th Avenue. And it just dawned on me that I was like, I want a drawing of a unicorn humping a dolphin in front of a rainbow. So I hit up my graphic designer that I was using at that time, who There's a whole story for another time, but he ended up embezzling $13,000 from me. And it ended up, I tried to confront him, but he disappeared. I think he was going through issues with drugs. But he was a weird dude in the best of times. And finally I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, I'm just going to call the police. And I did, and I'd never spoken with him since. But the police, it was a long story, but the police ended up busting him for it. Took forever. Took like 3 years. And they finally arrested him, and then we went to a grand jury to make sure the charges could stick. And then after I gave my testimony to the grand jury, they issued an arrest warrant, and they ended up getting him, and he spent a lot of time in jail. And he spent about 6-7 months in jail. And finally, he was waiting for bail because he couldn't come up with bail. But then apparently his mother, as far as the cops told me, his mother came up with the money, apparently by remortgaging her house or something. And they came to me and they were like, hey, here's what we've come up with. We're going to let him out of jail, and he's going to plead guilty to blah, blah, blah. And it's going to be a felony, but we're going to let him off without any more jail time if you're okay with it. But he's going to reimburse you. And I was like, if I get fucking full reimbursement, and I was like, can I get interest too? And they were like, don't push your luck. I was like, I mean, I should get the interest, right? That was 3 years. That shit would add up. But in the end, I decided, all right, I'll just take the fucking money back. So I got the money back. And, well, he was the guy who drew this original image, and he sent it back to me as line art. And I told him, I was like, dude, here's what I want. I want a unicorn humping a dolphin from behind with its arms around its belly in front of a rainbow, and I wanted to look very Care Bears. And he sent the line art drawing back, and I'll never forget when he sent it back, because I was literally on my way to get a vasectomy. I was actually on my way to an appointment consultation for a vasectomy. I ended up getting it like 2 weeks later. That's a whole other story. Maybe I'll get into another time. But I saw it, and I was like, boom, he fucking nailed it. And I was like, cool, make it color. Now make it color. And then a couple of weeks later, I got the image in color, and I didn't know what this image would be for. I didn't know what I was going to use it for. I literally had no idea, but I just printed it out and I hung it on the wall in our office. And then I printed out another one, color print out, and I brought it home and I hung it on my refrigerator. And I probably hung on my refrigerator for about a year, and I would just laugh every time I went to the fridge, and it was just really to entertain me. And then one day I was like, at this point, I gotta say, too, I only had a few tattoos. I had only had one on my leg, 2 stars on my arm. I had like 4 tattoos at that point. Now I have way more than that. But this was probably 2006. And I was like, I know where I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it on the inside of my left bicep. I was like, that'll be perfect. Perfect placement. It just seemed to fit really well there. And turned out, I didn't know this at the time, but if I hold my arm up and sort of flex and then twist my fist out in the opposite direction of a regular bicep flex and then go in and out with my fist, it makes my muscle move in a way that makes it look like they're actually fucking. Like, it gives some motion to the whole picture, which is pretty cool. If you ever see me in person, you can ask me to do it. I'll do it for you. But I went and got that tattoo. And I was like, this is fucking perfect. And I got the tattoo, and my friend Bruce Gulick did it for me. And I had it on my arm for, I don't know, like a year. And when I would show it to people, then other people would make me show it to other people. And I ended up deciding I'm going to make t-shirts out of it. So I made t-shirts, and they became pretty good sellers. And then the tattoo started like showing up. I started emailing it to people and putting it on MySpace or whatever the thing was back then. And before I knew it, it ended up in a tattoo blog, and then it ended up in another tattoo blog. And I'm very proud of the fact that it's ended up in both positive and negative tattoo roundups on blogs, like the worst tattoos or the best tattoos. And I love that, like, it's not a shitty done tattoo. That's the thing. Like, you go on a lot of worst tattoo blogs and they're always poorly done, but this is a very well done tattoo. It's just a weird image. So that's why it's ended up on the shitty tattoo blogs. But so I ended up on a bunch of blogs. I ended up in a book. I ended up in this magazine. I'm holding it up. It's, if you're watching the video version of this podcast, you can see it's Inked magazine with Kat Von D on the cover. And they ended up doing a little feature about me. And hey, look at that. I actually this was in a stack of things I grabbed from my storage when I was back in New York. But yeah, it's the Inked Magazine episode from Inked Magazine issue from May 2011. And so I've ended up in magazines. I'm in another book. I forget what it's called. I have a copy of it somewhere in storage. But like, it's ended up in so many things that I've lost track, and I don't even really care to keep track. That's never really been my thing, collecting and keeping track and things like that. Like I used to think like I used to keep every concert stub from every show I'd seen, and eventually at some point in my life, not even that far into my life, I just was kind of like, I need to save stubs for. I go to so many concerts, you know, and I'm not a guy who collects things, even if it's things with me in them. Even when I was playing in Tragedy, my heavy metal Bee Gees tribute band, like I thought I would save all of our press clippings, and it just got to be too much. I was like, I can't even keep up. And like, who cares really? Like, I know these things happened, and yeah, sometimes it's nice to kind of scroll through things and find old reminders, but you know, thankfully I have a mind like a steel trap, as Alexander Turner says, and many other people who listen to this podcast have told me I have a very good memory, which is cool. So I made it into a shirt, and we started selling a bunch of the shirts, and then I made fake temporary tattoos of it, and then I made stickers, and then I started putting it on. I made a Rock Soft business card with it on there. And then one summer, 2007 or 2008 or something, maybe it was probably 8, I redesigned our whole website to be like a pink background and have the Dolphin Unicorn logo on it. And like when we announced our new cruise season, I was putting that logo in the bottom of our Village Voice ads, and I started getting emails from people, emails and phone calls. We got quite a few of them, and people were asking in a very tender, ginger sort of way. They were like, hey, we're interested. We saw your flyer, blah, blah. We saw the ad. Like, is this cruise like specifically for gay people? And I would be like, no. I'm like, why do you ask? Well, the way the artwork is. And I was like, pretty quickly, I was like, like, nothing wrong with people thinking it's for gay people, but if it's going to keep them from maybe coming on the cruise. So I was like, I got to redesign the website immediately. So I did. And then something else weird happened. People started getting the tattoo. And there's this one guy who got it on his forehead. He was starting to go bald, and he got the tattoo right on his forehead. And someone sent me a picture, and that blew up the internet, and that went viral in its own way. And so a bunch of people started sending it to me. And I've seen it on a couple other people that I don't know. And then I saw a really good one. Someone also got it done. And now these are people who didn't have any connection to me. Like, nobody got the tattoo and then sent it to me being like, hey, I just got the same tattoo you have. These are people who just found out about it, however they found out about it, and then got it. This one guy got it. It's the exact same way I have it, except the unicorn is wearing fishnet stockings and high heels instead of his like kind of hooves that he has in the original version. And I was like, that's good. That's good. I like that one. That's pretty cool. The guy who got it on his forehead, though, I still can't understand. Like, he must have lost a bet. I saw it posted in different places, and then I posted it a couple of times, and then somewhere along the way, I can't remember where, but someone was like, I know that dude. I went to high school with him. And I think it was it was on a page where I didn't know. It wasn't on my own social media page or something. So I never really tried to track that guy down. I kind of wish I had, but yeah, so a bunch of people have gotten this tattoo, and then in maybe 2011 or 12 or so, a friend of mine was like, I want to write a song about your tattoo. I'm going to write the lyrics. Do you know someone who can do the music for me? So I was like, yeah, I bet my friend Cornmo could do it. Cornmo's an old friend of mine from Denton, Texas, singer-songwriter, accordion player extraordinaire, and my friend wrote the lyrics, and it went, I am just a unicorn, humping a dolphin, and he wrote all the lyrics about why a unicorn would want to fuck a dolphin, and I sent the lyrics to Cornmo. Cornmo turned it into a song, and then my friend B.A. Miale turned it into a music video, and then we had an idea. I used to own a tattoo shop in Tucson, Arizona, and it was called the Magic Fun Store. My involvement with it was basically just paying for it. My friend Bruce, who had done this tattoo and did my back piece and a few other tattoos on me, he moved to I had told him, like, hey, if you ever want to open a tattoo shop of your own, I think you're great. Like, I'd be willing to go into business with you. And he moved to Tucson, was tattooing at a place there, and called me up out of the blue one day and was like, hey, remember you said that you'd be willing to back me in a tattoo shop? And I was like, yeah. He's like, I want to open one in Tucson. And we started talking about it, and he seemed to, like, have his shit together. And said he found a place, and it was $600 a month. So I called the landlord. We talked a little bit, and I sent him a check for $1,800, first, last, and security deposit. And then I flew. Bruce went and signed the lease, and I paid the down payment in the first and last month. And I went down there and I rented a car, and Bruce and I went to like Home Depot and Target or whatever and bought the shit we would need. It had been an art gallery, so we didn't need much. We needed a massage table for someone to lay down on, and a chair, and Bruce had a computer, and we bought like paper towels and trash bags and things you need to like operate a business like that. And didn't take much. I think I ended up spending like $4,000 or $5,000 to get the place open. And my friend Dave, who wrote the lyrics of the song, was like, what if we made the song and the video a commercial for your tattoo shop? And I was like, that'd be great. So we did, and then Dave and I flew down there, and we filmed some footage of the tattoo shop and made it look like I was getting the tattoo right then. And BA made the video and then turned it into Cornmo wrote a coda for the end of the song and re-recorded it. And so the last verse was like something like if you're into spiral screwing, the Magic Fun Store can do all your tattooing. And then there was an instrumental break, and we cut into the footage of the tattoo shop and made it into a commercial. And at the end of it, it said, if you're looking for a tattoo, come to the Magic Fun Store in Tucson. And then I think it debuted on Thrillist.com, which is a website Dave worked for at the time. And we let them like break the video, and like they made some post like, this is the craziest music video about a tattoo that actually is a commercial for a tattoo shop. Check it out. And it got like hundreds of thousands of views. I don't even know what it's at now, but if you go to Google, YouTube, and put in the Unicorn and the Dolphin, it'll pretty much pop up, or just text me. I'm going to put links to a few of these things in the show notes. On Spotify anyway. On Apple, you don't have that much room in their show notes, so I can't put much in, but I'll put it in the Spotify. Or you could go to jakerocksoff.com, and in the search bar, type U as for unicorn, and I have a whole blog post that collects a bunch of these things, including the Whitney Cummings link. And so that happened, and that was cool. And then we actually we put the phone number in there, and a bunch of people called the shop just confused as to what was going on. And I think in the hundreds of thousands of views we got, I don't think it led to one single tattoo that we gave at the shop. So as a commercial, it wasn't good, but as a piece of art that just made people laugh on the internet for a while, it was great at that. So then it ended up in, it ended up in a episode of the Graham Norton Show, which Graham Norton is like a David Letterman type in the UK, and he does a show and has guests on, and something they do in the UK that they don't do as much here. They used to do it more here, but they would bring the guests out. They'd bring the first guest out, then the second guest, and the first guest would stick around, and they'd sort of interact a little bit. In this episode, Graham Norton had Minnie Driver and Mark Wahlberg, and they did a segment on tattoos, and they showed a few different tattoos, and then they come to mine, and they put my arm up there on the screen, and they didn't know where it had come from, obviously, no mention of me, which is fine. But Minnie Driver and Mark Wahlberg started like, oh my God, I can't believe this tattoo, oh my God, and they started discussing whether or not it was anatomically correct, and if that's how unicorns had sex, and like I told Whitney, when she announced to the crowd that I have a tattoo of a unicorn fucking a dolphin, I said, Whitney, they're not fucking, they're hugging. And she was like, yeah, okay, whatever you say. But of course, I did say humping when I asked for the original design. But oftentimes I'll tell people humping. I'll be like, hugging. I'll be like, they're not fucking, they're hugging. What kind of sick mind do you have? And I turn it around on people like that. So it ended up on there. And then I was contacted by a TV show in the UK called RudeTube. And they were like, hey, we saw you on the Graham Norton Show. We saw your tattoo on there. We saw this music video that you made for the tattoo. Like, we would like to feature you on our show. And RudeTube was a show in the UK. I don't know if it's still on, but they basically do like theme shows where they take a bunch of YouTube videos and put them on the screen and have some silly commentary. And they were doing one about the animal kingdom. So they were doing all these different animals, and they wanted to use my tattoo. And they were like, we're going to be in New York doing some filming. Our crew is flying over from London. So we would love to maybe come by your apartment and shoot a little interview with you and the tattoo. And you can tell us about what the idea was behind the tattoo and all that. And I was like, yeah, that's great. Sure. Come on over. And I was like, how much do I get paid for this? And they were like, oh, you don't get paid. And I was like, what do you mean I don't get paid? Like, your TV show's on a network over there, right? You have advertising? And they were like, yeah, but we don't pay the people that are on it. And I was like, well, that's fucked up. Then I don't want to do it. And the woman was like, oh, really? And I was like, yeah, really? Like, you just told me you're flying a whole crew over here. You must have a budget. Like, you got to pay me something. I'm not just going to, like, you take up my whole afternoon. Like, I'm giving you great content for your TV show. So she was like, all right, we'll pay you $300. And I was like, and again, it wasn't really about the money. It was about the principle. Like, yo, I'm going to be part of this. I'm going to help you, like, make your show good, right? Like, it's my content, you know? I just wanted to get paid something. So I was like, all right, make it 300 pounds and you have a deal, which is a big difference because in those days, the 300 pounds worked out to $550. So I didn't want to just take $300. So I negotiated and got the 300 pounds. And I ended up splitting it with BA because she was the one who made the video. And they came to my apartment and BA came over and we talked about, you know, the idea behind the tattoo and all that. And that's still up somewhere. Type Rude Tube, Unicorn and Dolphin, I guess, in a YouTube. And then the tattoo basically went dormant for a while. And every now and then I'll get, someone will send me a picture of it, finding it somewhere or a link to it being somewhere. But also in 2017, I was at the Relics office, which is, they call it the Relics office, but it's Peter Shapiro's office for all his stuff. It's really the office for the Brooklyn Bulls, Relics magazine, which he runs, Headcount, the voter registration organization, and Capitol Theater. So Peter's bigger company that oversees all that stuff is called Dayglow. So it's really the Dayglow office, but people call it the Relics office. I was on 29th Street and 6th Avenue, and I was in there working one day because that's where I moved the Rocks office to when I moved to London. And technically, that's still our mailing address and all that. 104 West 29th Street, 11th floor, in case you want to go by there. But this woman was working for Headcount, the voter registration company, and maybe she was working for Do NYC. That was also there. Doesn't matter. I think it was Do NYC. And her name was Deanna. And I was getting pins made, enamel pins of the Unicorn and the Dolphin, which I should bring up. You can get one of those by going to rocksoff.bigcartel.com. They make great Christmas presents. I only have about a dozen left, so if you want one, go ahead and pick one up. Order it. I'll have it shipped right here from Yellow Pine, Idaho. And Deanna came and saw it on my screen, and she goes, oh my God, I totally want to get one of those t-shirts. How can I get one? And I was like, just order it online. Go to rocksoff.com and buy one. And she was kind of like, ugh. Like, what she meant was she wanted one for free. And I knew that's what she meant, but I'm not giving away these t-shirts, you know? And she was like, okay, I guess I'll order one. And I was like, you know what you really should do? You should just get a tattoo of it. And she goes, oh my God, I totally would. And I was like, really? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, really? Like, right now, let's me and you go to a tattoo shop and I'll pay for you to get this tattoo. But you got to do it right this very second. And she was like, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, I'll be right back. And she went in the back and got her jacket and came back out. And she was like, all right, where are we going? And I was like, holy shit. I couldn't believe she was fucking serious. I hadn't expected her to take me up on it. So we walked right out to the elevator because I was like, all right, let's go. And everyone else in the office was just sitting there being like, is this really happening? And we got in the elevator, headed downstairs, got in the taxi, and I was like, just head downtown. And I called my friend Rodrigo Cantaris, great tattoo artist. And I was like, yo, Rodrigo, you at the shop right now? He's like, yeah. I'm like, you have a customer? And he was like, no. And I was like, cool, I'm in a cab. I'm bringing you there. Pull up the image of the Unicorn and the Dolphin. A girl I'm with right now is going to get it today. And he was like, are you kidding me? And I was like, no. I kind of quickly briefed him and told him the situation. And I was like, she's going to get the tattoo like right now and I'm going to pay for it. So we're in a cab. We'll be there in fucking 10 minutes. And it was down in Soho. And we went, and on the way down there, I started talking to Deanna, and I did not know Deanna that well. Like, we had worked in the same office here and there, but not much. I'd been living in London, but I was like, you know, where are you going to get it? And she was like, right here, like right on the inside of her forearm. And I was like, oh, wow, that's bold. That's a bold placement. You sure that's where you want to get it? She's like, hell yeah, that's where I'm getting it. And I was like, cool. How many other tattoos do you have? And she was like, just one. And I was like, whoa, what? This is only going to be your second tattoo? She was like, yeah. And I was like, what's the first one? And she's like, it's the infinity symbol. It's like right in my back, like on my, where the bra line would be. She's like, I was like, how big? And she's like, about the size of a quarter. And I was like, yo, I don't know now. And then I started having second thoughts. And I was like, are you sure? Like, this is what you want to do for your second tattoo? And she was like, yeah. And I'm like, maybe you want to put it somewhere that's like less visible. She was like, hell no. That's where I'm getting it. And then we get down there and I brought her inside and she starts talking to Rodrigo and showing him where she wants it and how big. And he was like, yo, are you sure? And he started doing the same thing I had done. And she was like, no, this is where I want it. Like, this is where I want it. And he was just kind of like, all right, okay. And I was like, they started getting to work on it. I was like, cool. I don't need to sit around and fucking helicopter the shit. So I was like, I'm going to go for a walk and I'll come back. And I came back like an hour later and the tattoo, they were just finishing up the tattoo. And I tried to pay Rodrigo for it. And he was like, no charge for you, of course. You're my brother. And I was like, okay, well, thank you. And then I slipped him $100 bill as a tip. And Deanna got the tattoo. And she still has it to this day, of course. And I guess she went home not long afterwards. I guess her girlfriend was not psyched about it. And then she went home to see her parents. And they were understandably not psyched. But she still fucking loves it. And I did end up giving her a free t-shirt after that. And when I posted the picture of me and Whitney the other day on Instagram, Deanna sent me a picture of her showing off her tattoo again, which I thought was great because fuck yeah. And Deanna still has it and loves it. And now I finally got to meet Whitney Cummings because of the tattoo. Mostly. I mean, I guess I could have met her anyway because she was signing autographs. But like now Whitney would probably never forget that we met and how we met. And the next morning, she posted on her Instagram stories the picture she had taken of my arm and, said, captioned it just like Seattle, see you tonight. I thought that was pretty cool. And so the tattoo keeps making the rounds. And I gave her the sticker. She said she put it on her computer. So maybe on an upcoming episode of her podcast, we will see it on her laptop on the camera. And the legend of the Unicorn and the Dolphin keeps growing. So yeah, if you want a shirt of the Unicorn and the Dolphin, you can go to rocksoftthreads.threadless.com, or you can find that link by just going through rocksoft.com, and also rocksoft.bigcartel.com if you want the enamel pin of it. And yeah, if you want to own a little piece of Unicorn Dolphin stuff, we also have stickers for sale on the Big Cartel site. And if you want to order some unicorn meat smoked, go to speakeasymeats.com. Adam Bauer's amazing smoked meat company. It's getting close to Christmas. You want to give the meat eater in your life something juicy for Christmas that they'll never forget? Go to speakeasymeats.com. Use your discount code Jakey. Adam sent me a big package last week that's in the freezer. I did tear into the pulled pork. I wish I had left some for myself because I would stick it into my mouth right here on this podcast so you could see me eating it. But I got to say, Speakeasy Meats does an amazing job with smoked meat. They have amazing pastrami and monstrami brisket. And just go to the website, check it all out. Use your discount code Jakey. That's it for this week. We're coming upon the 1 year anniversary. Like I said, I don't know if I'll do something special for that episode. Maybe I will. If you have any ideas of stuff you want to hear me talk about on this podcast, hit me up on social media at Jake Rocksoff on Twitter or Instagram. Maybe Facebook. I don't know how do you find me there. Just type in my last name if you can spell it. I certainly mostly can't, or else I would try to spell it for you right now. But you know where to find me, or you can use my phone number, 917-443-7615. Something you want to hear in this podcast, text me, or type that number right into your Venmo and send a donation to this podcast. We love getting money. It's going to be a long winter up here in Yellow Pine. So if you find anything in this podcast valuable, I highly encourage you to show me how valuable you find it by sending me some money via Venmo, or just think good thoughts. Maybe send me a postcard, P.O. Box 113. Yellow Pine, Idaho, 83677. Send a postcard, send a gift pack, send some drugs. I actually said that a few weeks ago, and guess what? I mean, of course, nobody sent drugs in the mail, right? I think that would be a federal offense. But a little stork stopped by my house with a little bit of reefer. That's how it got here, yeah. And I would like to thank you very much, HC. I don't want to say your full name, but I appreciate the loving, thoughtful gesture of you sending me plant medicine. So yeah, like I said, P.O. Box 113, Yellow Pine, Idaho, 83677. And hopefully my four-wheeler won't break down on the way to the post office to send you return mail. Because everybody, if you're going to send me something, I'm certainly going to send you something back. And I hope you like getting mail as much as I do. It's one of the biggest joys in my life is receiving mail. So I hope you'll send me some. P.O. Box 113, Yellow Pine, Idaho 83677, or go to rocksoft.com and link through to all the other wonderful things, or fuck it, just keep listening. I don't care. You don't have to send me mail. You don't have to buy anything, but you should buy something from Speakeasy Meats because it's amazing meat, and they deliver it frozen to your house in these great cooler packs that are environmentally friendly. SpeakeasyMeats.com, discount code Jakey. Thank you so much for listening yet again and keeping me accountable for recording these things once a week, because otherwise, being up here in the back country of Idaho, I don't know that I would understand even what day it was on a week-to-week basis if it wasn't for having to record this podcast from me to you. Keep your feet on the ground. Keep reaching up through the snowy skies towards the stars. And eventually, you're going to make things happen for yourself. You're going to slow your own life down. You're going to fill your life with interesting experiences because you deserve it. Inshallah. I gotta press stop on this video. I gotta press stop on the video. I gotta press stop. I gotta press stop. I gotta press stop on the video.